Millions of elderly people are stockpiling toilet paper in preparation for the 2026 World Cup. A piece of information that makes everyone burst out laughing. And to be honest, it sounds a bit strange. Football is football. Costco is Costco. One side is a stadium. One side is a discount shelf. These two things shouldn't have anything to do with each other. However, in recent months, more and more American retirees are buying more than usual. They are filling their shopping carts with non-perishable food, medicine, vitamins, household goods, and all sorts of necessities. The strange thing is that the World Cup has just begun. What is even stranger is that no one officially warned about the shortage. And the strangest thing? Many of them don't even watch football. So, are they preparing for a sports tournament, or are they preparing for something else? Today, we will follow seemingly harmless signs in Costco to find the answer. And what we discover might say more about America in 2026 than the World Cup. At first glance, it's easy to think that older people are flocking to Costco because they are worried that the 2026 World Cup will cause prices to skyrocket. But the more closely we observe, the more we realize something interesting. The World Cup is actually not what they are most worried about. Football is just an event that appears on the TV screen. What keeps many people awake at night lies on the dining table, in the medicine cabinet, and on the monthly bills. It's the price of food, gas, medical expenses, and those small but persistent expenses, like drops of water continuously falling on a stone. Each individual drop seems insignificant, but after many years, they can carve a deep hole in the budget of anyone living on a fixed income. And this is what life often teaches us as we enter retirement. When you're young, if the price of beef goes up today, you might think, let's deal with it next month. But when you are 70 or 75 years old, your thinking often changes. Not because you are more pessimistic, but because you understand that time is no longer an infinite resource. The point worth pondering is this. Young people often buy according to current needs, while older people tend to buy based on the risks they foresee ahead. Perhaps that's why a 6-month supply of vitamins, a case of toilet paper, or a few cans of soup bring more peace of mind than outsiders might imagine. They are not just products. They are like life jackets stored on a boat before the storm. What is even more interesting is that this concern does not arise in a vacuum. Only in the past few years, Americans have gone through periods where many things that seemed always available suddenly became more unpredictable. Empty shelves, supply chain disruption, prices change faster than human consumption habits. Those experiences leave marks in the mind, especially for those who have lived long enough to understand that sometimes what hurts us the most is not the storm itself, but not knowing how strong the storm will be. And this is the twist that few people mention. Perhaps many older people don't really believe that prices will rise sharply because of the World Cup. But they believe that if prices rise, they want to prepare in advance rather than be caught off guard. It sounds simple, but it's a very big difference. After all, Costco doesn't just sell goods. For many retirees, it is selling something even more precious, a sense of agency. The feeling that no matter how the outside world changes, at least within their home, they still have enough of what is necessary for tomorrow. If you are also at retirement age, or taking care of elderly parents, try sharing in the comments. Do you think this is wise preparation or an overly cautious reaction? I would love to hear your perspective. And if stories like this help you see the subtle changes happening in American society, don't forget to like and subscribe to join us. Because in the next part, we will explore something even more surprising. Perhaps what Costco is really selling is not rotisserie chicken, not cheap gas, but a feeling that millions of Americans are seeking more than ever. If viewed from the outside, Costco looks like a place that sells items in bulk. People go there to buy $4.99 rotisserie chickens, giant bags of coffee, vitamin crates that last for months, or toilet paper stacked nearly as high as a child. But the longer I observed, the more I felt that those things were just the surface of the story. Because perhaps what Costco is really selling is not food, but rather the feeling of control. It may sound strange, But think about it. When a retiree buys a box of vitamins enough for a year, they are not just buying vitamins. When they fill the freezer with frozen food, they are not just buying food. And when they push shopping carts filled with essential items out to the parking lot, what they bring home is not just goods. They are bringing home a feeling that is very hard to name. The feeling that I was already prepared. The feeling that no matter how prices change next month, I still have a safety cushion. So, you can see that many people don't go to Costco for the cheap prices. They come for the peace of mind. In behavioral psychology, people often value the feeling of control more than the actual material value. That's why two people saving $50 can feel completely different. The first person sees themselves as just buying a discounted item. The second person feels they have avoided a future risk. And the second feeling is often much stronger. Perhaps that's why the shopping carts at Costco sometimes look more like lifeboats than shopping carts. A stockpile of soup, a box of supplements, a new pair of glasses, a full tank of gas. Very ordinary things. But when put together, they form something invisible. Peace of mind. And the interesting thing is that Costco seems to understand this very well. Look at the items most loved by the elderly. Not a big screen TV, not the latest technology, but hearing aids that cost thousands of dollars less. Glasses cost half as much as elsewhere. Medicines, vitamins, and long-lasting essentials. In other words, things that make life a little more predictable in an increasingly unpredictable world. Sometimes the most valuable item in the store is the one that isn't on the bill. If you agree with that, let me know in the comments. In your opinion, what makes people feel the most at ease when leaving Costco? Is it the amount of money saved? Or the feeling of being prepared for what might happen next? And right after this, we will come to an even more surprising detail. When looking at the items that the elderly prioritize buying the most, we will discover something very unusual. What is disappearing the fastest from their shopping carts is not luxury items, but products directly related to health, independence, and quality of life. That's where the story really starts to get interesting. Now the story is starting to get more interesting. If you ask most people which items they would prioritize buying before prices go up, they might think of TVs, phones, or expensive electronic gadgets. But when we look at the shopping carts of many elderly people at Costco, we see a completely different picture. The things that are most valued are not luxury items, but rather medicines, vitamins, hearing aids, glasses, long-lasting food, and protein sources that can nourish the body for weeks. At first glance, it seems normal. But the more I think about it, the more I see this as a very noteworthy signal. Is it possible that when people feel the future is becoming more unpredictable, they don't buy more of what they want? They buy more of the things they fear not having. Let's look at health items. A pair of hearing aids in many places in the US can cost several $1,000s or more, while at Costco, they are often significantly cheaper. Glasses are similar. For many retirees, this is not just a consumer product. It is the ability to hear the grandchild calling from the next room. It is the ability to read a prescription without squinting. It is the ability to maintain independence in daily life. And that is what makes them a priority. Investigating further, we also find another interesting phenomenon. Products like vitamin D, omega-3, multivitamins, or protein-rich foods often appear very frequently in the shopping carts of elderly people. Not because they are appealing, not because of good advertising, but because many people see them as a long-term investment in health. A large box of vitamins doesn't bring the same excitement as a new tech gadget, but it brings something else. The peace of mind that your body is still being taken care of. You see, while young people often spend money to upgrade their lives, older adults often spend money to protect the life they have built. Perhaps that is why low-sodium soup cans, omega-3 rich salmon, or long-lasting food packages have become important. They are not the standout items in advertisements, but in the minds of many people, they are like the bricks quietly reinforcing the foundation of the house. And if you pay close attention, all these items have one thing in common. They are related to health, autonomy, and quality of life. Not for enjoyment, not for bragging, but rather to maintain. What do you think about this? If you could only choose one category of goods to stockpile during a time of potential price fluctuations, would you choose food, medicine, or healthcare products? Please share in the comments, as I believe everyone will have a very different answer. If you find these perspectives helpful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And stay tuned, because in the next few minutes we will touch on something that might be even more important than all the items just mentioned. The truth is that what worries many elderly people the most is not on the shelves of Costco. It lies in something much more intangible, yet it affects every shopping decision they make. There is one thing that age teaches us, but it is rarely written on any bill. That is, people are often not afraid of what they know. We fear what we do not know. If someone told you that starting next month, food prices would increase by exactly 10%, you might not like it, but at least you can still sit down at the table, take out your calculator, and make a plan. You know where you need to cut back. You know how to adjust. But if no one knows how much the price will increase, how long it will last, or what will happen next, it's a completely different story. Uncertainty is like fog on a familiar road. The road is still there, the car is still there, but suddenly everything becomes more tense just because you can no longer see far ahead. And perhaps that is what is happening in the minds of many elderly people today. Isn't the biggest shock not in the bill itself? It lies in the question mark behind that bill. The 2026 World Cup may just be a sporting event, but in the eyes of many retirees, it has become a symbol of a bigger question. If millions of tourists flock in, if demand increases, if transportation and service costs change, will essential items still maintain their current prices? No one really knows, and it is that very void that creates a sense of unease. Interestingly, when we are young, we often think that money is the most important thing. But as we grow older, many people realize that what is more valuable is the ability to predict life, knowing how much will be spent next month, knowing what the electricity bill will be, knowing that the amount in the account is still enough for basic needs. When those things become more unpredictable, even the most calm individuals start wanting to prepare more. Paradoxically, the elderly do not stockpile because they fear running out of supplies. They stockpile because they want to reduce the unpredictable. A box of toilet paper in the garage, a box of vitamins used for 6 months, a freezer full of food. At first glance, they are very ordinary items. But on a deeper level, they are like reminders that at least we have prepared what can be prepared. Perhaps that's why many people feel relieved after a trip to Costco. Not because they just saved a few dollars, but because they bring home a sense of certainty in an increasingly unpredictable world. If you're watching this far, please share your honest thoughts in the comments. What worries you more, rising prices or not knowing how prices will change in the future? I think many people will have the same answer. And if these perspectives make you ponder, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because in the next part, we will explore a very notable change quietly happening in the way older Americans shop. An old rule that had existed for decades seems to be disappearing and is being replaced by a completely different way of thinking. That could be the most important clue to understand why Costco shopping carts are fuller than usual today. Perhaps the most interesting thing in this story is not what the elderly are buying, but rather the way they are buying. If we rewind about 10 or 15 years, a very common rule that existed in many American families was, buy what you need. When the milk runs out, go buy more milk. When the medicine is almost finished, buy more medicine. When the gas tank is low, stop by the gas station. That's how most people live in a relatively stable world, where the shelves are always stocked and tomorrow looks quite like today. But it seems that a new rule is quietly replacing the old one. No one wrote it down. No one declares it on television. But many people are living by it. Buy before you need it. Fill the gas tank when it's still half full. Buy vitamins when there are still a few unopened bottles in the cupboard. Stock up on food before prices rise. Extend essential services earlier than planned. At first glance, these actions may seem small, but when put together, they show a significant psychological shift. Many elderly people today no longer shop based on the present. They shop based on what they think might happen in the future. That's not pessimism. That's experience. Because those who have lived long enough often understand that life rarely gives notice before changing. The pandemic taught that, inflation has taught that, the times when supply chains were disrupted taught that too. Many people still remember the feeling of walking into a store and not finding the items that were always available. Not because the world is collapsing, but because they realize for the first time that stability is not always guaranteed. And once you've learned that lesson, it's very hard to go back to the old way of thinking. This is perhaps the major turning point of the entire story. The elderly do not change because of the World Cup. The World Cup just happened to appear at the right moment when a new way of life had already formed. When hearing about millions of tourists flocking to North America, when hearing about the pressure on hotels, transportation, food, or services, many people do not react with panic. They respond with preparation. Because preparation is always cheaper than surprise. And the older you get, the more you understand the value of it. Like an old sailor seeing clouds in the distance. He doesn't assert that there will be a storm. He just tied the rope and checked the sail a little earlier. Perhaps many older Americans are doing the same at Costco. They are not trying to predict the future. They only try to reduce the number of times the future surprises them. Do you notice that you are also living by this rule? Do you buy the essentials earlier than a few years ago? Please share in the comments. I think this is a change that many people have felt, but have never really named. And in the next part, we will step out of Costco to see the bigger picture. At that point, we will realize that this is no longer a story about toilet paper, vitamins, or stockpiled food. It is the story of how an entire generation is trying to maintain control over their lives in an increasingly unpredictable world. At this point, perhaps we can admit one thing. This is no longer a story about Costco. Costco is just where we see the phenomenon. But the real story is happening beyond the aisles and the shopping carts filled with toilet paper or vitamins. It is happening in the minds of millions of older Americans. Just think about it. How many retirees today check egg prices more often than the score of a football match? How many people know the exact price of gas at their regular station but can't remember which team is leading the World Cup qualifiers? It may sound funny, but it's a detail that says a lot. Because as we enter retirement, people's biggest concerns often change. We start to care less about how fast the world is moving, and more about whether our lives can maintain stability. The World Cup may be the biggest event on the planet in 2026. But for many retirees, medical bills and grocery bills are still the matches they follow most closely. That doesn't mean they are pessimistic. It doesn't mean they have lost hope either. It only reflects a very human truth. When resources become more limited, we will pay more attention to what directly affects our daily lives. And precisely because of that, stockpiling a few months' worth of food or buying essential items in advance is not a sign of greed. That is a manifestation of the desire to be proactive. No one likes the feeling of being passive in the face of changes they cannot control. No one likes the feeling of having to react after everything has happened. People always want to keep their hands on the steering wheel of their lives, no matter how many twists and turns lie ahead. Clearly, older people are not trying to control the future, they are just trying to maintain control over the present. And perhaps that is what makes this phenomenon more thought-provoking than a typical shopping story. When millions of people make the same decision, it often reflects a profound change in social psychology. Not the fear of a specific event, but rather the feeling that certainty is becoming a more valuable asset than before. If you resonate with this, please share your thoughts in the comments section. In your opinion, what brings the greatest sense of security in retirement? A larger savings account? Or the feeling of still being in control of life's changes? And now, moving to the final part of the video, we will reach a conclusion that might surprise many people. Perhaps the people loading their carts at Costco are not actually preparing for the 2026 World Cup. And if that's true, then this story turns out to be bigger than football, bigger than prices, and bigger than Costco. And then, when looking back at the whole story, I started to wonder one thing. Maybe the people loading their carts at Costco aren't really preparing for the 2026 World Cup. Maybe they are not really preparing for food prices to rise by a few percent either. And maybe they weren't prepared for a crisis at all. Perhaps what they are preparing for is the feeling that many of us have experienced at least once in our lives. The feeling of not wanting to be caught off guard. Because after a certain age, people begin to understand that life-changing events rarely come with a warning siren. They often come very quietly. An unexpected bill, a prescription more expensive than last month, a small expense repeated to the point of becoming a heavy burden. And it is precisely those small things that make many people more cautious. Sometimes what people hoard is not goods, but rather a sense of security. A box of toilet paper can just be toilet paper. A box of vitamins can just be vitamins. But in the minds of the buyers, they represent something else. They are a reminder that no matter how much the outside world changes, there is still a part of life they have prepared for. There is an image that I always find very interesting. When we were young, we often walked with the belief that we could handle everything when it happened. But as we get older, we start carrying an umbrella even when it hasn't rained yet. Not because we are afraid of the rain, but because we understand the value of not getting wet. Older people don't buy more because they worry more. They buy more because they have learned more lessons. Those lessons come from decades of living, working, raising children, navigating economic ups and downs, and witnessing the world change time and time again. So, when they see a major event like the World Cup, their reaction is not panic, but rather to prepare. Not because they know for sure what will happen, but because they know life can always create surprises. If you're watching this, please share your thoughts in the comments. In your opinion, is preparing in advance a sign of anxiety or a sign of wisdom that only time can teach? And if you enjoy stories that help us better understand the changes happening around us, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to join the channel. Because in the end, today's story isn't really about Costco. It doesn't really talk about the World Cup either. It talks about something very human. That when life becomes more unpredictable, we do not seek wealth first. We seek peace. And perhaps that's why the overflowing shopping carts at Costco tell us more about America in 2026 than any football scoreboard. What do you think about this story? Leave a comment below. If you find the video useful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next content. This video is built from reports, consumer trends, and social analysis perspectives at the time of creation. The content is for informational and discussion purposes only and should not be considered as financial, investment, or personal shopping advice. Each financial situation is different, so please consider based on your own needs and circumstances. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end. See you in the next videos.